Per some reports, the Nationals are in on acquiring a catcher this offseason, and this, in my opinion, has to be a move that Paul Taboni and company have to make.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And I am your host, Ryan Clary. You can find me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and also look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast. And later on in today's show, the Nationals have made their first move of the offseason. It's pretty exciting. We'll discuss that and who it is coming to the Washington Nationals later on in the show today. And in the second segment, I'm going to tell you which trade out there makes the most sense for the Washington Nationals as far as acquiring a catcher, but also we'll react to the reporting of Jim Bowden, the former GM here in town, as he said that the Nationals are going to be in on a couple of different catchers that include Adley Rutschman. And guys, I'm going to get this out of the way. Adley will not be a target for me. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So Jim Bowden of MLB Network over at SiriusXM, he said that the Nationals will be active on the catcher's market. But if I am the Washington Nationals, I would be very selective. And I think there's a couple of different guys who could be kind of being out there for the Nationals. It could be Adley Rutschman. It could be Blake Mitchell with the Royals. And it also could be Harry Ford with the Mariners. But I want to tell you why, at least at this point, that the Nationals should not be going after Adley Rutschman. I think there are a lot of different cases to be had here for why the Nationals need catcher help. They need a leader in the clubhouse. And you look over with the Baltimore Orioles and you say, well, Adley Rutschman would make perfect sense for this team. Why would you not go out and get him? Well, number one, if the Nationals were to make a true splash at the catcher position, you would be moving off of Mackenzie Gore. If the Nationals are trying to go out there and have this big-time game-changing catcher, you will have to move off of Gore. That's just how it is, especially when it comes to the free agency or the trade market, rather. Right now, Mackenzie Gore has 2 years left on his deal. And the reason why the Orioles are now rumored to potentially listen to offers as far as Adley Rutschman goes is because they have Samuel Basallo, and then also Adley Rutschman has only 2 years left on his deal. Adley Rutschman is due to get a big payday. Even after this season, after he was hurt for a majority of this year, he missed nearly like 100 games this season. And I think that Adley Rutschman, honestly, really took a step back this year. As far as his defense goes, took a step back. His offensive numbers have taken a step back. In each of the past 3 seasons, he has actually regressed offensively speaking here. When I am trying to go out and get a difference maker, if I am going to be trading Mackenzie Gore, which in this case, I think the Nationals would have to garner an Adley Rutschman type, I'm not giving up that because it is the same scenario as Mackenzie Gore here. The reason why I am willing to trade Mackenzie Gore now is the fact that he has 2 years left on his deal. I think that in these 2 years, you're not going to be playoff contenders. I don't think the Nationals will be able to get to that point where they're playing good baseball by the end of October. I think that's just the situation that we are in. If you were to trade Gore for someone who is in the same position as him, that just would not make sense to me. In fact, I think that would be counterproductive for what the Nationals are trying to do. Adley Rutschman is great. Like, every team should want an Adley Rutschman type. You can give him the credit for turning around that organization and being a leader in the clubhouse and doing all the things that are asked of him. But if I'm the Nationals at this point, while having an Adley Rutschman type of leader who may turn this team around would be valuable, number one, are you going to extend him? Probably not. Number two, is he going to be here for the foreseeable future? I don't know. I can't say that for 100% fact. If I'm the Nationals trying to make a big-time catcher move, I'm going to the Harry Ford bucket, or even a Blake Mitchell bucket, or the Edgar Caro bucket, who's one of the top prospects with the White Sox. Like, there are a lot of different ways that the Nationals should go for this. But the reason why we are here now is because we need a better catching situation. And the way that Keibert Ruiz has been these past few years, you obviously need an upgrade. And I think that right now, I would probably think that the Nationals are not going to make this massive move. I would like for it to happen. I'm ready to see Keibert Ruiz kind of put to the sidelines at this point, maybe move off him. If you can trade him, good. But at this point, I don't think anybody is going to be trading for a Keibert Ruiz. You're going to have to eat this money and just kind of wait until 2030 until his contract frees up. I did say the other day that I do believe this Ruiz contract is an easy move off decision, because I think that over the next few years, he's making like 6 to 7 and then escalates up to like 9 million in like 2028 and beyond. That's not that big of a deal for me. And I think if I'm the Nationals, honestly, the decision that I would do is you move off him today. Like, you cut ties with him, you let him go in free agency, you eat the rest of the money, and you're paying him for the next couple of years. So be it. It's not that much money. But right now, with the Nationals being in on this market, I think it is intriguing nonetheless. If I were to bet what were to happen moving forward, I think the Nationals will hold on to Keibert Ruiz, but I do think you will bring someone of note inside the building to not only just compete, but also put a lot of pressure on Keibert Ruiz. I don't know if the Nationals are all out on Ruiz at this point. I think that is a fair discussion to have, because you look at him and, like, let's say 2 years ago, for instance, you look at his numbers offensively and you're like, okay, it's not that bad. Like, yes, he had a little bit of power there, and it seemed as if he was clicking at points during that 2023 season. But all of a sudden, you're looking at him now in 2025, entering 2026. Not many people have faith in him turning around. I can tell you this, he's not going to be a stout defender. That's just not what he is at this point. He's probably not going to hit for 20 to 25 to 30 home runs even. I think that's way too much to ask for him at this point. So how much confidence do you have in him turning it around, even under a Paul Taboni type? Probably not that much. So seeing that the Nationals are trying to acquire catching help, number one, that's a positive, because I think that the catcher position has kind of just been abandoned ever since Wilson Ramos has left. Even 2019, when you had Yan Gomes and Kurt Suzuki, like, those were good catchers and they were good for what they had to do in 2019. But you just haven't really filled that void since letting Wilson Ramos go. And the Nationals have to fill that, like, now. And you have a couple of interesting guys down in the system, like a Caleb Lomavita, and I'm blanking on the 4th-round pick out of Texas Tech, Sir Jamison Jones, drafted out of high school this past year. Like, you have different guys, but you do not have the depth that I can say I feel confidently in this catcher position. I can't. And that is why the Nationals should be trying to acquire guys. And this is why the Nationals should be trying to improve their situation at this point. Because while I love Drew Millis and I like Keibert Ruiz, they're probably not the solution that I'm looking for. And I think with Keibert Ruiz, I feel as if 99% of Nationals fans and probably this front office has slammed the gavel on him and said, this is kind of what you are. You are a secondary catcher who might have a little offensive pop in his game if you can develop his bat, but you're not going to be good enough defensively for us to catch you at each and every single day. You could seriously make a case for Ruiz being a huge disservice for this pitching staff these past few years. Is he the whole problem? Not even close. Is he even a big chunk of the problem? Probably not. But he is part of the problem, in my opinion. And I think that when you see guys like Gore, who does have some wild pitch concerns, who has led baseball with wild pitches in a few years, you look at Keibert Ruiz and you're like, okay, you've caught this guy the most, and we've seen Riley Adams back there too. Is that kind of on the catchers? Like, could they kind of prevent some of those wild pitches from happening? Maybe. Who knows at this point? But the Nationals are trying to acquire catching, and I say yes to it. Now, there is one guy in particular that I think the Nationals should absolutely try to trade for. And I think this makes sense for both sides. I'll tell you who exactly that is after this. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. And plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a larger payout. And it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Like, for instance, we watched the Wizards on the money line. That is not the bet. But Alex Sarr over the points. That's the bet. Trey Johnson over on threes. That's your bet as well. And then, of course, over on the total for the Wizards game. That is what I do as well. And I always pay out with our friends at FanDuel. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We are back here on Locked On Nationals, and later on in the show today, the Nationals have made their first free agency move, and what feels as if the first free agency move of the winter so far. So we'll tell you who that is later on in the show today and how he could affect this Nationals team moving forward. But we start discussing now the trade that I would make for the Washington Nationals at the catcher position, and the guy that I would be targeting is Harry Ford from the Seattle Mariners, one of their top prospects in their system, who has been blocked over these past few years by Cal Big Dumper Raleigh. And I think at this point in time, like, it feels as if the time is now to trade Harry Ford if you're Jerry Dipoto and the Seattle Mariners. And luckily enough, having that big time catcher with Harry Ford, who's just 22 years old, a former first round pick, 12th overall back in 2021 by the Mariners, a former top 50 prospect in baseball even, Harry Ford could be coming to the Nationals, but it's going to cost you. And it's going to cost you Mackenzie Gore. I think that this is the move that makes the most sense for both sides. Like, if there is any move this offseason that I would think the Nationals will try to make, I think it'll be this one. I think the Mariners would want and need a Mackenzie Gore, a really good left-handed pitcher coming into their rotation. He kind of feels as if he's that finishing piece that even the Nationals needed back in the day with Patrick Corbin when they signed him ahead of 2019. Like, the Mariners are there. They're knocking on the door of being a World Series team. They almost made it to the World Series this year, obviously, lost to the Blue Jays in 7 games. And I think that that move would really put them over the edge. And when you have Cal Raleigh, who is one of probably the best catcher in baseball at this point, just hit 60 plus home runs this season. Like, moving off of a catcher that is just sitting there behind him, who doesn't really have a secondary position, that makes the most sense for this team. He's 22 years old. He's a really good prospect and still one of the best catching prospects in all of baseball at this point. And I think that this makes the most sense for what the Mariners are trying to do. And I think, honestly, from the Nats' perspective, this makes a ton of sense as well. The reason why I'm not willing to go out there and get an Adley Rutschman type is because you're just going to have to extend him after the next 2 years. And Harry Ford's case, he's got 6-7 years with the Nationals at this point. He would be your opening day catcher from day one. He's cheap. You can have Keibert Ruiz be your backup catcher and have him fill that void for the next few years and let his contract run out dry. Like, that would be no problem for me at all. And I think that this is a very realistic move, and it just kind of keeps in place your timeline for what this team could be. Because I think if you are trying to go out there and sign or trade for an Adley Rutschman type, then you'd be kind of limiting your window for the next 2 years. Harry Ford allows you to think for the next 3 years, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and build around him. And he easily can be one of your better guys in this system. I would love this move if I'm the Nationals. And if I am Paul Timoni and Devin Pearson and company, I am looking at a catcher like a Harry Ford, who has really improved his slugging numbers over the years, had an 868 OPS this season. He actually had 16 home runs in just 97 games at the AAA level this year. Back in 2024 in AA, he took a little bit of a step back last season, but this year really looked the part of being a big-time catching prospect. And I think that right now, honestly, the comparison for Harry Ford of just the kind of prospect that he is, he's not an Adley Rutschman type where he's going to be a franchise-altering guy, but he kind of reminds me similarly to Keibert Ruiz, at least the profile. And it's not going to be like the 670 OPS that you're going to get from Keibert. I think Harry Ford is a much better hitter. I think he's a much better defensive catcher. And I also think he's going to be just a better overall player. But comparing just kind of the farm system ranks and kind of the way that baseball pundits think of him, he does kind of remind me of the prospect of what Ruiz was, that offensive first catcher who can be good defensively, but ultimately will have to take those next steps. Now, again, I think Harry Ford is a lot better than what Keibert Ruiz is. But right now, for where the Nationals have to go, trading for a 22-year-old catcher and having him be a main piece in that Mackenzie Gore trade, I think would be a massive deal for what the Nationals are trying to do. And I think that that would make the most sense for not only just the Nationals, but also the Mariners as well. They could get Mackenzie Gore for these next 2 years. You try to extend him in free agency. And then if you don't, then you get yourself a top-of-the-line left-handed pitcher for these next 2 years who will be probably in the middle of your rotation, joining a lot of different other guys. Now, here's what the Nationals should be trying to get, though, in return as far as a trade package goes. Because I don't think the Nationals will just get Harry Ford and call it a day. That is their number 4 prospect, and I think the Nationals could get more. Now, how much more will it be? That's the big question. But here's what I would ask for if I'm Taboni. Not only are you getting Harry Ford in return for Mackenzie Gore, their number 4 prospect, but I want your number 2 with Cade Anderson. Yes, that Cade Anderson, who a lot of people thought would be the number 1 overall pick by the Nationals this year. I want the 3rd overall pick in this draft. Listen, maybe if you trade them Gore, who obviously fills that void that Cade Anderson would be down the road for this team, then that's going to leave a left-handed pitcher there, and you're probably going to have Cade Anderson sit in your system for a little bit. If I'm Paul Taboni, I am, for the first time, calling about this deal. If Jerry DiPoto's calling about Mackenzie Gore, trying to move off of Harry Ford, I am holding tight and saying, you give me Harry Ford, but I also want the number 3 overall pick from the 2025 draft, and that is Cade Anderson. That would make a ton of sense if I'm the Nationals. Now, do I think that they could pull off that deal? I don't think so. But I think that's what the asking price should be at first. And I think in these negotiations, I don't think Taboni is just going to give him up for nothing. Like Mackenzie Gore is going to generate a big return. It's just a matter of who is going to be willing to give the asking price for that deal, because I don't think the Nationals will just move off Gore for the best price possible. I think they have a set price in mind that they're like, we're going to trade him for X amount of prospects. And if you reach that value for us, then we'll give him overview. I don't think this is a case where they're trying to desperately to move off of Gore and teams are not going to be that willing to give up a lot. I think teams will be willing to give up a ton. And I think that the Nationals are in a good situation there to where you can get 2 top guys in your system and the number 3 overall guy from this past year's draft, Cade Anderson, that joins you as well. That would be my first ask. My second ask would be, we're going to make a little bit of a change here. We're going to go get Johnny Farmello, who is actually from Westfield High School. He tore his ACL a few years ago, but he came back this year and looked really good in high A for them. At 21 years old now, he was a first-round pick, and again, out of Westfield High School. He is a local kid from Fairfax County. I would try to get him in that package as well. So it would be Harry Ford, and you get their number 7 with Johnny Farmello, and then you'd probably throw in another guy. Maybe that is a Ty Pete, who's a shortstop in high A, who is their number 12 prospect. But I think the Nationals are in a very good position to make a move for a catcher. And I think it really starts, and these rumors kind of generate from a Mackenzie Gore trade. I think if you do land a Harry Ford, if you land an Adley Rutschman, Mackenzie Gore will absolutely be a part of that trade. And I think that right now, the one that makes the most sense is getting Harry Ford from the Mariners. It makes sense from a timeline standpoint. It makes sense from just a talent standpoint as well. And I think that the Nationals, you got to think for the future here, not just these next 2 years, the next 5, 6, 7 years, and set yourselves up for success in those future seasons. And I think Harry Ford and trading Gore to Seattle for him, that makes the most sense for what this team should be trying to do. So it's going to be interesting nonetheless to see what ultimately Taboni does do. Does he make a trade? Does he trade Gore? Maybe they decide to hang on to him. I think those will be some big questions as we jump toward this offseason. But the Nationals, they've already answered one of their questions of who will be in the Nationals bullpen moving forward, or could he be? Well, they just made their first free agency move of the offseason, and it's exciting. I'll tell you who that is after this. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there is nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating, and that is why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. And Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. And you'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price that you pay. And I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. Just last week, I was checking out the lines in the Commanders game. I saw tickets as cheap as $38 right before kickoff. I went on those flash zone deals at Game Time. And it's just the fastest and cheapest and also the less stressful way to do tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. And the Nationals have made their first move, but first and foremost, look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts to subscribe. But the Nationals have made their first move, and they have signed Eddy Yean from the Pittsburgh Pirates on a minor league deal with an invite to spring training camp. And for those of you who know the name, it's because you do. This was a former top prospect in the national system and a big-time arm out of the Dominican Republic, standing at 6'3", 270 pounds, 24-year-old Eddy Yean is going to be coming back to the Nationals organization on a minor league deal. This is intriguing, I think. And it's not because that this is some monster of an arm. Let's be honest. What are the odds that this guy comes in and makes a huge difference for the Nationals in this bullpen? We don't know. But we do know this. I expect the Nationals to have a completely reworked bullpen. And when I look at this, with this organization, with the forward thinking, with the analytics, the data, and all the different things surrounding player development and putting an emphasis on that player development figure, I look at someone like an Eddy Yean and I'm like, okay, I feel some type of way about this. An upper 90s fastball, a power pitcher that's going to blow a fastball right by you, a big presence on the mound. It kind of feels as if it's like that Felix Bautista signing for the Orioles when they signed him for absolutely nothing. And all of a sudden, he's like this king of a closer and comes in and throws 101 right by you. Like, that's kind of the perfect dream world that if you want to be in, you can be. You can convince yourself of it. But this is it's a move. It's something. And I do think down the road, Eddy Yean will probably pitch in some way, shape, or form out of this Nationals bullpen because, listen, Paul Taboni, there's nothing more on this planet that is going to attract him more than a high flame-throwing right-handed pitcher. That's kind of the market that the Nationals should be in. And at just 24 years old, he's coming off a solid season at best with the Pirates. Here's the thing with him, his walk ratio is out of this planet bad. And I think if you can clean that up, then obviously you're going to have something to work with because his stuff is good enough for it. But so far this season, I mean, or this past season rather, he had 45 walks in 70 and 2/3 innings pitched with a 1.60 whip. Like, he had a 3.06 ERA. So you look at that and you're like, oh, that's not that bad for a reliever. But then you look at his walk rate and you're like, oh my God. And he's got to make more swings and misses happen. So I think that this is an intriguing signing nonetheless. I think this makes sense for what the Nationals are trying to do. And do I think this guy is going to make a big difference? Probably not, but it is something of note. And again, having that power fastball, he's probably going to start off in AAA. You'll see what he does in spring training. If he really blows it away, maybe he has a case to make the opening day roster. As we know, this Nationals bullpen is going to be completely ripped apart, and this might just be the first move, and maybe he's a surprise guy, similar to Orlando Rebalta this past season, who made the opening day bullpen, and maybe that's Eddy Yean for this season. But it's a move nonetheless, and it's the first move of the offseason. And again, going back to it, he was a former National prospect. He was in that Josh Bell trade, went to the Pirates, never made it up to the major leagues for them. And I think that this signing, it kind of shows you that the Nationals are going to be pretty active in this free agency market. And I think in this particular market with Eddy Yean having that minor league invite, I think that is going to be a market that the Nationals will clean up on because they've got a lot of openings in their farm system. And I think that Eddy Yean will be the first of many of these little tiny signings. So thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen. On tomorrow's show, we will talk about Blake Butera's intro presser that just is happening today at 1:30 p.m. So make sure you stay tuned in for tomorrow's show. We'll hear from the head coach or for the manager himself, and we'll have a lot more to discuss on tomorrow's Locked On Nationals. So I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.